So I have 2 lessons back to back right now, so I figured I'd do those on stream. They both said they're okay with it, which is cool. And that's about it. Gonna see what we can do in these 2 lessons. And then either I practice after that, or I end the stream and then come back later and practice. Watch Redirect, thank you for the 27 months, I really appreciate that. But yeah, that's the plan. My sleep schedule has been really bad since I got sick, so I didn't have a lot of time to prepare for the stream. So I might have to take a break and then come back. And I've been rescheduling a lot of these lessons because I didn't want to do them while I was sick. But I think today should be okay. How's the Froki hunt going? I didn't do any after the stream yesterday, so maybe I'll do a little bit today, whether it's on or off stream. Lambesis, thank you for the 7 months. Thank you, I really appreciate it. I did play some Banjo-Kazooie last night. Took me forever to beat Rusty Bucket Bay. That was the hardest level. Level 2 is the hardest. What, is that the water? The first water one? Or is that the 3rd level? that level is also... I mean, the 2 water levels are probably the hardest. Because it's Nintendo 64 water level. Even though Rusty Bucket Bay is like... I wouldn't say it's like a water level, but... Okay, Huh? Let's, start the Metafy lessons. Hello?
Hello?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey. Damn, I can't believe I'm actually talking to you right now.
I know you mentioned you weren't sure if the connection would be stable, but do you have anything you'd like to chat about before we get into some matches, or would you rather play some games and go from there?
Let's play one game real quick.
Okay, yeah, sure.
This place I'm renting for college is pretty,
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah, I've done some lessons with the people on college storms. It's
Seems decent, I guess.
yeah, I could probably get the job done.
Yeah. And it's kind of whatever. We good though. Okay. Yeah, that's. What do you think? Good enough to play some games here and there, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
Completely
but
up to
as
you
I
though.
said, I would like to keep this more conversational based. I got the feeling that, that's something that you'd prefer as well.
Yeah.
So, allow me to just give you my brief history with the game so you just have, context given everything that I'm going to tell you. So, I started with Smash 4 and I've been, playing solely online since then until a year ago. A year ago, I finally started going to tournaments, and
Yeah.
I mean, people say that Spargo was this like online god, and then he came and he started focusing up in online tournament or offline tournaments as well. And I would have somewhat have liked to think the same because I did decently as I dipped my toe into the offline scene. I was even fortunate enough to win a monthly. And so that all happened about a year ago during this time, the spring. And then because of school, I went and did an internship back home in California. And there I went, all the way back to only online. And I, was busy working, so I didn't get that much of a chance. Coming back to the scene now, things just feel different. I'm confused on why it seems like I'm losing more, and a reason for that is because a big thing that you get into is mask your intent, and a big that kind of relates to I'd say, like, how do I put this? You want to mask your intent in that you don't want to do greedy stuff. You don't want to over greed. And so when I kind of do things on the ledge or off stage mostly, it's like I'm very aware of when I'm kind of overextending and going for something overly aggressive and overcommitting, so to speak. But neutral is just, like I'm lost. There are some games that I save because I'll destroy them on the ledge because that's where I succeed. And my main is Diddy Kong, so that's kind of to be expected to some extent. But just it's like they have my mind read when I'm on stage, and it frustrates me, and I don't know how to fix it. And, it's just I'm very obvious when I'm in that neutral thing. They know when I'm going to swing, and I swing in very predictable ways. So
Yeah, I think that's a really great starting point, and I actually think it connects really well into just the first game we played. The concept of masking your intent. Let me actually select Diddy, and we could go into a game, and we can just like visualize a couple things.
I started maining Diddy when you picked him up over quarantine as well, so I gotta thank you for that, sir.
I appreciate that. Yeah, he's the best.
There he is. He is though.
So something that's really interesting about your gameplay is actually how technically proficient you are, right? You do a lot of the stuff that I'm comfortable with as well, at least from the first game I noticed. You did a few things that a lot of Diddy players actually can't do. But the first thing I want to go with is actually talking about your ledge play, right? So at least two of the times you were on the left side here, you did like a wall jump monkey flip, right? Which is a great option. But when it comes to the idea of masking your intent, something that's interesting about those two times you did that, or at least the second time specifically, is I was positioned around like right here, right?
Yep.
So I'm positioned for the monkey flip before you even do it. But you were so quick to kind of do like the mix up before the traditional option that you're, basically monkey flipping at a position where, despite it being like an unexpected option, it becomes riskier. So basically, I think what I want to get into is the idea of complementing the things you're comfortable with traditional options, because you're so quick to do the mix-ups, even when the pacing doesn't really match it, and when your opponent's positioning doesn't really match it either. For example, you did a rising monkey flip kick, and you would do it into me, and it would successfully like get you out of the corner or something like that, but then you would also hit my shield after. So it's kind of like you are brute forcing the pacing, right? You're doing technical things, you're doing aggressive things, but I'm not matching it at all. And
Yes.
not only am I positioned for the mix-ups before they happened, I'm also punishing like your second option or so without even doing anything. I think you really have to watch your opponent's pacing, and you really have to watch what they're even aware of in the first place before you really start opening your bag of tricks. Because the bag of tricks can only be so helpful if it's complemented by some of the basic stuff that Diddy's already so good at in the first place, right? Like for example, if you're really quick to throw banana and do a bunch of crazy stuff against an opponent that's kind of playing it slow, you know, in reality you could have just monkey flipped their shield or something, right? And once you get that basic option, that monkey flip, that's where the ball starts rolling, and that's where you force them to change up their movement, change up their pacing, and that's where the technical things become so helpful. It's really about the idea of balancing Diddy's basics with his tech, and if you prioritize one over the other, things might start to get a little dicey. Based on the first game, basically, I think that's where I wanted to start with this lesson.
Okay. I do agree with what you're saying, of course, and I'm duly noting everything you say. But what if I raise you this counterpoint? So doing the rising monkey flip to ledger. Sometimes I'll put in a wall jump. That's opening up the bag of tricks, as you say, kind of as a mix-up. But what if that's like the kind of base state, and then I mix that mix-up with basic options? Because once they start knowing that I'm doing this,
that
then
could
I
perfectly
can just
work
normal
too.
get up, and then boom. But then they start catching normal get. I don't know. It's
well, that's the thing with
guess,
disadvantage state in general, because I would consider being on the ledge disadvantage is it's not as if I'm trying to tell you there's a right or wrong option, right? It's more so like, what can we do to make our opponent work as hard as possible for their hits when we're in disadvantage, and what can we do with our character to like complement our traditional options and our character specific mix-ups and disadvantage as well. And with Diddy, in a lot of situations, it's not like he's just going to get out of these situations for free, but he can definitely give your opponent like extra things to worry about. Like for example, if we are gonna like pinpoint it on this option specifically, it goes really well with just pulling banana and regrabbing ledge, right? Like giving them something to worry about. So if I pull that banana, give them something to worry about, and then do it, that gives us a lot of data and consistency too, especially if they're uncomfortable. Rather than just viewing it as one singular option that you can throw out, you can kind of give them a couple things to worry about at the same time. But yeah, it's not like, these options are going to work all the time if you perfectly balance them out. There's really no right or wrong option. And like you said, it doesn't have to be in a specific order, right? You don't have to play basic and then play technical. You could play technical and then basic, or maybe you play technical and it's working because your opponent's pacing is working out for that. But, like you said, it's important to be open-minded. It's not like there's a specific order to this, and it's not like anything is right or wrong. But based on the first game we played, that's basically just the starting point I wanted to work at.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Oh yeah, another point I wanted to touch on is like feigning being a noob, for lack of better term. Like I I did watch over your videos that you posted to your YouTube channel about your other Metafy lessons, and I actually took some notes on that. And for one of them, I said, "Am I consciously mixing it up?" This dude, I think it was like your second video or something. This dude was jumping a fuck ton. What if he meant to do that? So that kind of ties into this overarching point of like, you know, is it good to do dumb options if you are getting data from it, you know, or you're tricking your opponent into thinking that you suck basically, and then you know, surprise them by not sucking. That's it's not eloquently put, but you know, yeah.
It makes a lot of sense, and it's something I actually do probably more than a lot of people. Getting hit on purpose is like the simple way to put it, right?
I don't take it like get hit on purpose a step further, because that's going full into the, you know, like allowing your opponent to get it because they're like falling into your trap, so to speak. But
well, like it's like the idea of stored reads in terms of like baiting your opponent into thinking you're vulnerable or like taking damage for data.
That's interesting.
That kind of thing. And as risky as it is, you have 3 stocks to work with, and if you're familiar with like certain matchups and, you know, their advantage state and, you know, the risk reward of, you know, what hits you can take to guarantee survival, you know, there's a lot that goes into this, and, you know, it's kind of like stored reads. Let's say it's like a situation that will replay itself multiple times a game, like the corner or the ledge.
Yep.
You know, this is actually something I would give a lot of credit to DeBuzz's Rosalina for many years.
How so?
When he doesn't have Luma on the screen, he's really, really good at even taking certain hits to guarantee Rosalina survival, and, you know, Luma will eventually be back while he's like weaving his way through disadvantage. Like he'll sit and shield forever in some matchups and be like, take the grab, bro. And even the opponent will be like, damn, like I want a specific hit to take a stock before Luma comes back. Yeah. But his defense and his situational awareness is so high that you're just gonna have to take specific damage and deal with another Rosa and Luma combo, you know what I mean? And in those Metafy lessons that were on YouTube, I'm pretty sure I talked about something similar with like a falcon string, right? Like taking up airs rather than like, you know, taking the down air or the knee. You know, there's definitely a lot of
and you
data.
Can, like, you can DI or preemptively DI or do certain things to like make it more likely you're gonna get into a favorable string or something that is better than the, you know, other option, which is death. Because you did touch on that, and like a big thing is like hold your resources, because, you know, if you're showing that you're gonna jump every time or air dodge every time, then it's less of a I'm gonna take this hit. It's more I'm gonna, you know, die one of these times because they have a huge data read on me.
Yeah, if you hold those resources, one, it gives you a chance to see how preemptive they are, right? If they swing too preemptively and you held on to all your resources, now you have the privilege of reacting in a situation where, you know, when you're in disadvantage, you usually don't have that privilege. But if that opponent makes that mistake, great. Now, instead of me saying there is no right or wrong answers, now there is, right? Because you're just reacting to what they do because you held onto your resources.
And that's actually, you can play a mix-up on that by, you know, showing that you're using your resources, but then don't use your resources one of the time.
Especially in a valuable situation, right? Where like a stock is on the line or the game is on the line. But the more important side of that is data, is collecting data. Which is something I'll touch on probably every time I stream these lessons. When you're holding on to those resources, you're more likely to collect data on your opponent's advantage state, which is going to replay itself again, right? It's like Smash Bros. Is Smash Bros.
Yes.
And something I wanted to finalize with the Buzz example is it complements Rosalina's character so well, right? Because if she gets thrown off stage while waiting for Luma to come back, she's super floaty. He's going to maximize the time. He's on the ledge with the invincibility. when he like lets the up B rip, and by the time he's off the ledge again in the same position as he was, now it's with Luma, right? And that's a really good example of kind of taking a hit on purpose. I don't want to say straight up getting hit because he wants to, but guaranteeing survival, rather than, you know, being too preemptive or taking a risk. And with Diddy Kong, a kind of similar example is kind of feinting uncomfortability with like banana, right? Like leaving the banana on the stage, or like being close to it, but like, you know, baiting your opponent into thinking they have the frame advantage to pick it up before you, right? And there's a lot of data from this. If I put that banana on the ground and they're really quick to like, oh, I'm gonna run in, I'm gonna dash attack it, maybe I'll hit Diddy and take the banana, and I like down air auto cancel it, shield their dash attack and take their stock. Like that tells me a lot about how they want to play the matchup. That tells me a lot about their unfamiliarity with Diddy and his banana, rather than just like picking that banana up, right? Testing my opponent, seeing how are they going to play super defensive and actually let me take the banana, or are they going to try to steal it from me? That's another example of like kind of baiting them into thinking you made a mistake, right?
Yep. Oh yeah, another point I want to touch on kind of similar to that is like, because what that does is it gets you a lot of data, and it kind of like, it in a way kind of like, it makes them uncomfortable because you're mixing up the tempo in a way that they're not used to, because you can grab that banana every time. It's not very hard for a D to jump up, grab that banana while it's still in the air, but letting it touch the ground, and then and they might not be expecting that. And you know, so how many times should you go for something that they don't expect, simply for the effort of not letting them, you know, be comfortable and expect things? For example, when I'm off stage, you know, Diddy Kong has some great mix-ups to get to lead. You can go right for it, you can go really high, or you can take quite a while to get there using a, you know, monkey flip and then charge the rocket barrel all the way. Sometimes, just to kind of see what happens, I'll just take a while to get to ledge, and then some other times I'll mix up, go real fast. And so like, how worth it is it to do that? Is it, like you said, you got to really kind of like case by case scenario, see what's working, see how they're kind of playing around it as well? You know, is everything about this, you know, mix up thing is it just to kind of, yeah, I mean, I don't know, kind of lost my track.
No, that's all right. Like, I'll visualize a couple things. I guess to start off, the important thing is what character you're up against, right? Like, what do they value? Are they more of an edge guarding type of character? Are they more of a two framing type of character? You know, etc. And then the other thing is, what resources do we currently have off stage? For example, if I'm playing against Corrin, is a really perfect example, because Corrin is a character that actually can hit Diddy Kong for recovering horizontally like this. So if I recover like that, Corrin's side B could actually hit me. But if I recover like this, Corrin's side B can't hit me.
Yeah, the long mix-up, as Diddy likes to call.
So it's really all about how many resources do I have, and will the Corrin actually land this? Like, for example, if I'm at 20% and I do this with a double jump, I could go for the quick recovery and collect that data on, like, you know, their timing. Are they going for it? Are they even aware of it? But, you know, if I'm trying to guarantee survival, I'm going to monkey flip over here. And then my two mix-ups are going under the stage, because Corrin is too slow to position for a pin on the other side of the stage.
Yes.
Or just guaranteeing survival and grabbing this ledge, because it's less likely to work if I go straight up.
Yeah, and there are kind of disadvantages and advantages to doing either, that you can kind of like,
yeah,
you can play based on like how you think your opponent, like, you know, if that Corrin is really, really good at fucking you in the ledge, you're probably going to go all the way to the other set. So it's kind of simple stuff like that.
Yeah.
May I ask one more question?
Yeah.
Like, this stuff is all well and dandy, but to some extent, are you not worried about like overthinking? Like, is that not a concern you have? Because sometimes I feel like when I am trying to implement these ideas of being of playing this super nuanced kind of cerebral game, as you like to put it, versus reactionary? Like, is it too overthinking and self detrimental?
Yeah, I definitely think I've had like, because I've obviously put like blood, sweat, and tears into Smash, and I've also put a lot
Yeah.
of time into such specific strategies, right? That it has been a struggle, and there's been times where I'm a big overthinker. I feel like a lot of people in my life would say that about me, but I like to have faith in it, I guess. Like, I've always tried to been like, oh, in the long run it'll be okay kind of person. And I'd like to say, like, it's worked out for me overall. Um and with Diddy, I like to say that, like we said, as much as he has all the nuance and cerebral stuff, like, he also does have the basics you can rely on, whether you specifically want to, whether you're nervous, like, you know what I mean? Like, that balance will always be there, and that's why I still have faith in, like, selecting Diddy as a character, right?
Yeah, because
Because it's not like I have
you
to
do
be
have
perfect, or it's not like I have to play, like, this crazy style in every matchup in every situation. I do have to a lot of the time, but I can really separate it by players and matchups and stuff like that. And when like, something I wanted to touch on, like another example with the recovery. I know it's off topic because you just asked another question, but let's say you're recovering versus Samus, right? So Samus is a character that's going to want to deal with you on stage while you're on the ledge for the most part. So when I'm recovering, I might be more likely to use my double jump to grab banana and go to the ledge, right? Because now I have something.
They're not gonna
Sorry, you cut off a little bit. Basically, what I was gonna say is you're gonna give them something to.
Wait, I heard you.
Sorry. Basically, I was saying you're giving them something to work with when you're fighting back off stage, right? Because now if I have banana coming off the ledge, maybe I can interrupt something by having a transcendent projectile. Maybe I have a way to go under the stage and then get off the stage with the banana while they're like trying to cover the other side, etc. So it's very different than the Corrin matchup. So I think it is case by case, and it also is important, like how much percent you have, how many resources you have.
Yeah. I actually, like, if I have the double stage, and very frequently I do, I will almost every time pull the banana. And not very often will I get punished by that. And if I'm not getting punished by it, then should I just do it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you can almost build upon that by, like, you can mix them up and just not pull that banana and everything and go straight to ledge.
Yeah, there's also the concept of, like, because Diddy pulling banana before he recovers is such a specific thing that players only really start playing it when you've played them a bunch. Like, I only have a handful of people that can, like, take my stock for that, right? And once they show that, a lot of layers start to appear. There's even the interesting idea of pulling the banana and then recovering without even grabbing it, right? Because they might start to position for a specific edge guard, and then you can get past them because you recovered way faster than normal. Concepts like that start to unlock. But these things only happen with a couple people that I've played with hundreds of times. A lot of players aren't ready for it, or they're not comfortable even, like, pressuring you when you do it.
Okay. Hey, actually, could I suggest something really quick? It's feel free to veto this suggestion, but I would like to tell you anyways. Another really big thing that I wanted to learn from you is how to VOD review correctly. You know, when I'll be playing good, I'll be playing fine, but then I'll lose, and maybe it's because of something the opponent did well, maybe it's something because I did wrong, and I'm saying this mostly in the context of online, but carries over regardless. in the moment and right directly after the match, I'm not gonna know what the answer to that was and like why the game switched tremendous. Because like I mean, I'll be fiving a dude, five winner streaker type beat, and then suddenly I'll lose and like something changed. I did something wrong or they did something a lot better that I did not adapt to in the right amount of time. And I'm gonna want to get into another game. I'm not gonna know the answer right there. I saved the VOD review. I go back. I still cannot discern why it went differently. And if you would like to just give me a quick little lecture on what you think could help, that would be great. I also I go to Northeastern University and they have VOD reviews on YouTube, and I bet we could find one of my games out there if you'd like to kind of watch it and help me through it. Then I mean, I went 0-2 at both of my last performances, so there's certainly some losses to look at. Up to you. What do you think?
Yeah, well, first off, when it comes to VOD review, like, I've done a lot more VOD review for other people than myself, but I've still done it nonetheless. So, my key philosophy with VOD review is a couple things. One is like universal situations, those being like respawn invincibility, the ledge, corner, things that are going to happen on every stage, every matchup, every player, and really pinpoint like what's happening in that VOD. And two is, I like to call them pacing breaks. Like, when one of the players gets momentum, why is that happening and what happens after? You know what I mean? Like, does the other player bounce back from that, or does the other player take advantage of that, or neither? Those two things are really important to me. Like, there's definitely like I like to call them pacing breaks or like key moments, and seeing what happens after and why those happened. Because obviously not every player is like a super top competitor. Like, a lot of people can get mentally shaken and fall apart, and that usually happens in every game of Smash in a key moment, basically.
I think I know what you're talking about, and if you looked at a lot of even really top, I mean, even at a bunch of the fucking Genesis 9 games, there's probably a moment you could find them.
Yeah, exactly. Even for my own wins or losses, or like, like you said, even in the highest level of play, like if you look for it, you could definitely find it.
Yeah. Wait, I just realized you're streaming this and everything, and I'm kind of swearing a lot. Is that
No, you're good. You don't have to worry about anything.
Okay, cool. So, more games, or would you?
Yeah, we can do more games. I don't mind.
All right. I'm gonna play this one actually though.
Got it.
About 30 more minutes in the session, right?
That sounds about right.
Me. A classic. Damn. So clearly, at last stock, you had quite a bit of momentum, and at some point, I lost that momentum. I fell into a kind of string of bad decisions that you took advantage of. Correct?
Yeah, that was a big example of what our conversation just was, right? Like a key moment or a pacing break. So like once I got the lead, your pacing like stayed consistent, right? Especially after getting hit. Like you would get hit by a string, go to the ledge, immediately pick a ledge option, right? So so that tells me you're not making the most of your ledge invincibility, and you also want to be in a different position ASAP. You know what I mean? So for me, if I preemptively put out a hitbox at a specific timing, I can keep up. I can get extra damage because it's like.
And that is. Sorry.
Your pacing in disadvantage that you would have while being juggled is connecting into your ledge play as well. So when those things start to bleed into each other, that's where I start to weave in like a early kill setup or something I normally wouldn't do. You know what I mean? Like
yeah. I mean, you caught my jump with the banana down there.
Exactly. If I think your pacing is going to be like, if I'm getting a grip on that, that's where I'm more likely to go for something like that rather than a traditional ledge trap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
May I ask a quick character-specific question to
Yeah.
mix it up on you, so to speak?
Yeah. No problem.
How the fuck do you do that? That I have, you know, when I picked up Diddy Kong, and especially when I started getting good at him, like I've been watching you for so long, and I absolutely loved it when you picked up Diddy Kong because I just think you're a visionary with him, and I love the way you play him. I try to model how you do it, and you know I've gotten to a point where I'm decently sound in the technical aspect, and
yeah,
you know, my ideal version of Smash is when they're playing me in tournament, I'd like them to think they're playing against you. They're playing against some unbeatable Diddy Kong who knows all the tech and all the ways to fuck you off stage, everything like that, and it is somewhat effective. However, I've never been able to catch someone's jump with a banana downer like that. I don't know how you do that. Is it like a super hard read on their jump timing, and then you drift forward with the Z drop over it seems like it shouldn't work, but it does. I don't know how you do
when
that.
you're going for it, you're going for it. You know what I mean? Like I'm inputting this whether it's gonna work or not, kind of thing.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Kind of like a Z drop. When you know they're like let's say it's a fucking like pit recovering from the depths, and you're committing to a Z drop down there. It's kind of
it's
similar to that, but like for a jump.
It's a bit of a buffered input, and it's also the same input as for me as Z drop out of shield. So there's this. I'm not. Are you aware of like there's like a macro to get a frame perfect Z drop out of shield?
No, I don't.
Okay, let's go into a game
There
then.
is?
So essentially.
Oh my god, is that why my Z drops have been so trash this whole time?
Probably.
Oh my god.
So
Because obviously you made it very clear that Z drop out of shield and on ledge and on like so many situations can be so great, but I've never been able to do that.
So essentially, here it is, right? So the reason it's perfect every time is I'm holding shield that entire time, and I'm sliding my finger from jump to attack while holding shield. And if you hold shield long enough, it'll just drop. And you'll also,
what the fuck? Whoa!
And so
oh my god!
So like think about that, right? Like someone hits my shield and I get a punish, great. But think about all the other options with this, right? So watch, I'll do the same input for this. That was the same input. So my shield just didn't come up. So I'm not full hopping, I'm not drifting too far or not far enough just because of the macro being so perfect. Same thing for this, right? If they're gonna jump. You know what I mean? It's just the same input.
Yeah.
It's always the same input no matter what if you're doing a short hop Z drop. Other than like doing Z drop aerials, I guess. But it's
and you're saying there's no way, because I've always Z dropped by just like, you know, I'd be holding shield, they hit me, and then boom, and then that.
Yeah,
and you're saying there's no way to get it, or there's no way to get it as consistent, because even that, like, does that look like it's perfect? Probably not.
Well, the problem is you might full hop, and the idea
by the way,
the idea of me knowing, I can't see the numbers when I'm playing, right? But the idea of me knowing this is the same every time is enough for me to be like, okay, I'd rather do this every time. You know what I mean? The hardest thing is getting into the habit of holding shield long enough, right? Because if I hit you with it, I gotta make sure I hold shield long enough, but I have to let go before I actually hit you.
Hey, can you back air my shield, please?
Yeah, so hit stun makes it difficult, right? Because you might have to hold shield like for longer. Sorry. But like if you get hit by a super powerful move, you're gonna have to be ready to adjust it a little bit, right? Like hold shield for a little longer. And that's pretty much it. Other than that, it's pretty easy.
Damn, that is interesting. I did not know. So I use the shoulder button as jump. Do you think it's still possible to do that? Just like, or maybe, I mean, shouldn't it technically be easier? Because I can literally just input the attack and the shield at the same time, but then I'm getting that.
If you're getting the forward toss, I don't think you're holding shield long enough.
Fuck!
I think.
It's so hard.
Yeah, I just purposely didn't hold shield and I threw it forward. I personally use X for all of my jumping except pop gun tech. So I'm holding shield with R on my GameCube controller and I'm sliding my thumb from X to A while holding shield. So it's super easy.
I did do that once and it did kind of work.
Yeah.
Okay, I will give that some work. I will give that some work. Thank you for teaching me.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, I'm gonna take a quick little break. I gotta smoke, if you know what I mean. Honestly, feel free to tell me if I played better or not. But
no problem.
I'm still gonna focus up and take notes though. If you have any, we did actually touch quite a bit on the things that I wanted to say. Like most of my notes and the random questions I had have been answered. One more thing would be, and this kind of ties it into, well, everything we've talked about. I'll just tell you, how true do you believe you think is like optimal beats good, like good, the kind of little, I don't know if it's like a meme, but it's just something and true. So it's like the extent that is kind of true, because it's like there's data to be collected from each of those three options. You can do an optimal thing and it beats something good, and you can do a good thing that beats something bad. You can do a bad thing, and there's kind of data to collect from all of that. And so is it worth it to play into that idea? And for example, in match when I'm playing, is like you'll just be, and it ties into like everything we've been, like a noob option to just sit there and wait for them to do something. But there is something to be gained from that, correct? Hello?
Sorry, you were cutting off a bit. I think I have a vague idea of what your question was, but
sorry about that.
No, you're okay. I think you're okay now if you want to repeat it.
Okay, I was just talking about like the whole concept of like, you don't always want to do the optimal thing. You don't always want to do a good thing. Sometimes you even want to do a bad thing if it means that you can, get data. Because what if
Yeah.
they do an optimal thing? Well, you're going to need a noob option to beat that optimal thing, because noob beats optimal, optimal beats good, blah, blah, blah. That's basically what I was getting at.
Yeah, when it comes to... Here's an example that I haven't really said on stream that I say a lot in these Metafy lessons is, let's say I'm fighting a Ken player for the first time. Like, I'm familiar with Ken, but I'm not familiar with this player. I will put myself in a position for the usual expected things from Ken as a character. So let's say I put myself in a position to deal with like a roll-in down tilt.
Yep.
I'll put myself in that position and I'll watch. And I'll even have a small punish ready if it happens. Maybe it happens, but it's at a slightly different timing. And as the game progresses, I gain a lot more data, and there's also the possibility of the risk reward is in my favor for harder punishes. But let's say I go into that matchup with a different ideology of, I'm going to punish their spot dodges, I'm going to punish their roll, and instead I, run into them and get hit by like a crazy Ken combo, right? Sometimes I'd rather collect data and get no damage at all rather than risk getting hit. And with Diddy, like, this perspective works out well because you can whiff punish from so far away with things like banana and stuff, right? And you have so many routes you can take for, small punishes, medium punishes, huge punishes, like big optimal stuff, but it kind of weaves its way through the game as I collect data, as I get confidence, as the risk reward changes or shifts throughout the match.
I see. That was a good point. I mean, I guess to another extent, an idea I would have is like, you could also just like stand there and see how good this Ken player's punishes is, and then you can almost play off of that to see what their confidence is in their Ken combo game. But you can do kind of some dumb things or some very preemptive positioning that is not always optimal, because at the end of the day, like in your example, you're kind of just like sitting there. You're like sitting there and shielding whatever, waiting for them to do something. What if he doesn't do it? But you are at the end of the day collecting data, and it's important to do that. And
yeah, something that's interesting about it is, for me personally, I like to call it like ignoring my opponent, right? They're kind of just like fighting themselves, and it's kind of like they're revealing their intent without me having to force it out of them, right?
How so?
Just because I'm not even pulling banana or like trying to hit them, and they are doing like a spot dodge into a down tilt, right? So not only did they swing, they did multiple decisions without me like doing anything about it, right? And that tells me a lot about their current mental state, their pacing, what's going to happen throughout the match, how I should position myself, and and there could be a few reasons for their decisions, right? Maybe they're feeling pressured by...
Sorry to interrupt you really quick, but that is actually another thing I really wanted to touch on that you said is I had a really big question. It's like, how do you always, kind of know their intent? Because you have to know their intent with a certain, when as you said, they fighting themselves, they're doing a, spot dodge down tilt. What are they over there tweaking out for? You're just sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah.
And there's kind of, there's something, there's a lot you can gain from that, but only if you kind of read their intention correct. I mean, psych you out. And is that where the mind games just begin, and you gotta just be good at mind games or whatever?
Well, this is a bit of a long one because it dives into like my whole philosophy of how I play Smash, but like you said, it's not like you're a mind reader. You could be completely wrong, and that's fine. You can adjust your gameplay, whether it's like character specific or not. But for me, I've been like kind of playing with this mindset or philosophy for like, over half a decade. And you know, I'm a super try hard about it. I categorize characters, and like there's a few, like it's basically like it branches out in multiple ways, whether it's players, play styles, characters, character matchups, and you know, so before the match even starts, I've been doing this for so long that I have a vague idea of what I want to do to get started. So it's not like I'm starting from scratch every time, right? Like if I play with Cosmos right now, I have a lot of data from the other times we played. I know him as a person, blah blah blah. I know what character he plays, of course. So I preemptively categorize these things, and I even go as far as when I'm at tournaments, I look at my opponent's body language or how they speak to me.
Oh,
how they're how if they do something when they're in the game, right? Like if I hit them with something, if they do a specific thing, what does that mean? So I dive super far into that, and I've been doing it for so long that, you know, I tend to categorize people, and sometimes I'll be super ready before I even have to super dive into this specific person, just because I know their character or their play style, or they do a couple things in game that connect into each other. And
I mean, yeah.
Basically, it's my way of trying to find consistency in a game that would otherwise be really hard to have consistency in, right? Because if I figure out an edge I can have before the game even starts, that goes such a long way, right?
And you don't think that, like, I everything you've just said, you said you kind of have a vague idea, but this is, to some extent, the philosophy. I have a vague idea of your vague idea, because I've been watching you for a really long time, and I think your play style is, like, the correct way. I try to play like you. It's the fun way to play. I think your play style is great. You don't think that everyone has the same play style, though? Like, doesn't everyone take data from these things and then use that to build a game plan to then, you know, read their opponent in the right ways that they'll win?
I think
isn't that?
I think there could be a lot of truth
doing?
to that. I'm really not 100% sure what you're asking, but I think like when it comes to like a tournament environment, like people will do anything to win, right? And I think something that I talk about a lot in these lessons that I try to get people to stray from is a lot of in-game decisions that hinders this philosophy and makes it harder to approach the game with this philosophy, right? Like you said, like a lot of the time I gain a lot of data from doing nothing at all, right? Where a lot of players, I've said this before, where they might be baited into thinking there's a certain way to play based on the in-game's mechanics, right? Like low end lag, the scrappy like shield aerial to shield scenarios and stuff like that. And like in some of these situations, the faster you are, the more likely it is that it's just a coin flip rather than like data collection and consistency, right? So a lot of the things I try to teach in these Metafy lessons, a lot of the time it isn't trying to teach them something new. A lot of the time it's really trying to unlearn something, you know what I mean? Rather than like teach them a new concept. Because a lot of the time when we jump into a game or two, yeah, we'll jump into a game or two and I'll be like, oh, you did 2 or 3 preemptive decisions in a row right here. And that's where we start, right? I attack those things consistently all the time.
I would agree with you that is the, if I were to teach someone as well, I mean, I certainly don't think I would be able to do so at my level, but if I were to, I would do the same exact thing. And so it makes me think, like, the best players like yourself and, you know, MK Leo, Light, everyone, aren't they just, you know, these people who have done these things, eliminated all the bad habits, and are just left with a super refined, but ultimately similar to what you started with, which is just like, you know, habits and reads.
Well, a lot of it isn't necessarily about them like getting a grip on their opponent. A lot of it is really they're adjusting a bit faster than their opponent, right? Because something I talk about all the time is even players that are like household names in Smash Ultimate, like that are really good, like high level players, they might fall into a lot of the things I've been talking about, right? They might have a consistent pacing that they don't adjust fast enough. They might go into a lot of scenarios that are coin flips. So there's not a lot of room for consistency. But sometimes that scenario works out for them, right? Whether it's a matchup or it just works out. So they might
Smash. I mean, you can never really predict what.
Exactly, and it's not like something's right or wrong. And
just kind of do randomly. When I'm just down tilting your shield, I'm not thinking.
Yeah, and it might lead to a lot of frustrations, right? Because they might go to a tournament, it might work out, and they're like, oh, I figured this situation out, or I figured this matchup out, or I figured this out. And they'll go to the next tournament, run it back with the same pacing, do similar options in situations that are really dicey, and it doesn't work out. They get frustrated, but they don't know where the source is, and they're just going to go to the next tournament. But if you use an example of someone like... What's up?
I feel the same way when I play people online. Like, I wonder why suddenly my down tilts aren't working or with grabs. Like, and you feel that when you go to an entire different like S tier tournament, you'll feel that like different way, and they'll have the read on you. Like, they'll just have your number or something. It feels like.
You use an example of Leon Light, and with Leon Light, it's like.
Yes,
they'll potentially see that window of going to that scrap, that situation where it's just really risky. The risk reward is like basically a 50-50 of they get hit or they get a hit. And they are really fast to refresh, disengage, get a different game plan, slightly adjust when they swing, slightly reposition in those scraps. Like, for example, let's use those Diddy down tilts for an example.
Yes.
You do it, it works. Next time you do it, it doesn't work. And in that second moment, you don't even realize that there's something wrong. The third time you do it, it doesn't work. Now you realize something's wrong. And see, like like it just wasn't fast enough, right? Now the game might be over. But another example of like an actual concrete Diddy mix-up there is like, put yourself in that same scenario where you would down tilt, and you crouch, and you crawl, or you shield, and you re-shield. Like, it's like micro decisions that are... You're slightly repositioning, or you're doing something really small but non-committal, and you could even down tilt again, but there's a slightly different timing to it, or you slightly like crawled backwards before you did it. Now it's a little safer on shield, and those slight mix-ups go such a long way, rather than just like brute forcing and running it back, right? Because as a Diddy player, you know, I know the pain of like running into someone, down tilting their shield, and now I'm in a really tough scenario, right? Rather than like
especially a down tilt that you expect to hit. Because
exactly.
There are some times when I just think I'm gonna get them, but then, you know, it'll be a similar situation that you're used to. And damn, you're saying people like MK Leo and Light, the reason that they have such a refined game plan is because they're so quickly able to like, you know, like know what situation they're in and then disengage properly, or just do like some movement / option that is just safe and consistent.
Yeah, a lot of people call it refresh rate, where it's just, you know, even if it's just slightly faster than their opponent, it goes such a long way because, and that's what leads into these, like, I like to call them double decisions, right? Like the spot dodge Ken example. So if this player is fighting Light has already repositioned 1 or 2 times, or even gone for an opening on that down tilt, before the Ken can even realize that they're making this double decision. The Ken is just covering their option with another option, right? Like, oh snap, I spot dodged, and the situation isn't playing out like I wanted to. Let me cover myself with my fastest option. And there's
Light's already ahead at that level, and you're saying from that point.
Yeah, Light might be running away and shooting lasers at your down tilt. You know what I mean? So getting damage and repositioning away from Ken's strengths. But what the Ken player is doing makes sense. They did something that is vaguely vulnerable, but they're not sure. And they're covering themselves with a fast hitbox. But the problem is, they're in the same spot for like double or triple the amount of time than Light is in this scenario. Light isn't rigid by panicking and covering themselves with like stationary options or decisions. Light is repositioning without pressing anything at all.
I totally understand what you're saying, and to some extent, I'd like to think that I've gone into that zone of focus where you're just always that constant step ahead, thinking of the options that are just efficient. You're because everything you're explaining and how Light does it like that is just very like he is just that one step. He's just that one step ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's making the most of his character, right? His character's really fast and flexible, right? He can use that speed to reposition, or he can use that speed to punish you from like far away or get big damage. But one
And I
last
mean,
thing I
like,
wanted to mention before we wrap it up is especially since you play Diddy specifically, and I know we talked about a couple Diddy specific things. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Discord anytime. I have a bunch of charts and videos if you need anything. And I also wanted to mention that I think your Diddy Kong is really great. You do a lot of
really
things that a lot
appreciate
of Diddy
that. That
Kong
means a lot
players
to me.
don't do. So I think that's a really great, like, I guess, like, foundation, right? You have a lot of tech skill, and yeah, I definitely wanted to say that before we wrapped it up.
That really makes me happy, Tweek. I really appreciate
Yeah,
you
no
saying
problem.
that. And I will totally hit you up if I want those charts and everything. Honestly, I play pretty by feel, and I've never looked at you, so
That's fine.
we'll see. But I
I've
so
done
much
that a lot too.
appreciate your time. Thank you so much. I know that you might not actually, yeah, you know, if you have that COVID, damn, that sucks. But thank you so much for your time, man. Really.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
Bye. That dude was awesome. Let me grab a water real quick before my second lesson. Yes, another lesson. Lots of lessons got booked after the YouTube videos. Kind of didn't realize that was going to be a thing. I just wanted to do more streaming hours, but... Saw the chat arguing about the prices of the Metafy lessons. I'm sorry that it's expensive. I don't know.
Choose your fighter. Diddy Kong.
Keep forgetting like what I make the password. Okay. Refresh rate, new skill, understood. Pink Fresh actually has a good video on it and introduced me to the term in the first place.
Sephiroth.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good one. It was a good time. Do you want your Switch?
I feel like shit.
Do you usually ask the lesson if they're good with the lesson being streamed? This is new, but yes, I ask every time. I don't want to just stream it. At first I was against streaming it because I want to put all my effort into them. But I gotta stream more, so... Let's do the second lesson.
Hey,
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Good. I know I know you didn't mention anything super specific in your Metafy message, but is there anything you'd like to chat about before we get into some matches, or would you prefer to play some games and go from there?
I'd like just play some games first and then go from there.
Okay, yeah. If you have any question at any point, feel free to let me know. Another thing is if you would prefer to like, if you need time to collect your thoughts or focus, you could also ask questions like after today's lesson. But other than that, we should be good to go.
Alright, sounds good.
Three, two, one, go!
One thing I noticed is, especially going back to locals, I started again on Monday. I'm pretty bad in disadvantage state. I feel like I always burn my resources pretty early.
Like
Is
one
there...
thing, just based off the one game we played, that was probably going to eventually mention was more so the corner situation more than anything specifically in disadvantage, just from that game, was you would successfully like escape in some way and then kind of cover yourself with another like defensive option right after. Like for example, you rolled off of ledge or something and you didn't get hit for it, so you're out of the corner, right? You're off the ledge, you're out of the corner, and then you like spot dodge or rolled right after that. And then I hit that, and then the situation kind of now you're back on the ledge, right? And I think that's really like an important part of the match, because that says you're playing your disadvantage state really fast, and you're also giving your opponent like not one option to potentially cover, but like two, right? And that's a big thing I always look for when I'm playing someone in tournament, because that says a lot, right? Because that's kind of like a panic option, and that's something I could really like capitalize on in throughout the game. So basically what I'm getting at is you kind of want to be friends with being on the ledge or being in the corner as any character, because you don't want to show your opponent that you're scared to be there. Because the big thing with Smash Ultimate is a lot of players, they play their disadvantage really fast, and they also try to make up for the damage they just lost, right? So not only do they want to get out ASAP, they also want to hit their opponent for hitting them. And something that's important is you don't want to be afraid to be in the corner, and you don't want to be afraid on the ledge, especially because it's going to happen every game, right? Like, it's just a part of of Smash. And if you're doing panic ledge options or corner options, and then when you actually successfully escape, you cover yourself with even more panic options, you're just more likely to spend more time in those scenarios, because you might get like rinse and repeated, I guess.
Alright, that made sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Like, if we go into this game, I might just like visualize a couple things if you don't mind.
Alright.
Because the ledge in the corner is something I guess I talk about a lot in these lessons. Like, for example, like, let's say you're like, you know, positioning around here, and I'm like in the corner.
Okay.
And let's say I neutral get up into that roll, right? Not only did I give you data on like what I like to do off the ledge, now I'm showing you that I don't want to be in the corner at all. And without even putting out any preemptive hitboxes or pressure, you know, I'm giving you a lot to work with, and I might even potentially get hit for that, right?
Oh yeah, so like I neutral get up and spot dodge a lot.
Exactly, like something like that. And I can punish that without even like putting myself out there, right? Especially at Sephiroth, that's beautiful for me because my moves are a little slow. So if I have if I have two things to look at, it's like, all right, I'm more likely to get a clean hit. But the most important thing for the person that's doing these options in the corner is you miss out a lot on how your opponent is going to approach that ledge and corner, right? If I'm in the corner and I'm really quick to like just like do any macro option to escape out of it, I'm not going to learn like what my opponent wants to do in those scenarios. But if I like crouch or like threaten a parry or like inch my way out or like jump to a platform, I might find like, oh, my opponent does X option when I'm in the corner, right? Like maybe they're trying to, you know, do an aerial or do a tilt on my shield. Whereas if I never took the time to inch my way out of the corner, I would have never learned that information. And now it's going to be hard to get out of the corner next time because I don't have anything to work with despite being in the corner earlier on in the game. And that's where the macro options start to get better, right? Because if you can find options to exploit in your opponent's advantage, you know, you can just give yourself answers, right? Like, oh, my opponent like full hops when I'm on the ledge at this timing. I'm just going to roll past them. Now I skip the ledge and the corner, right? And that's because I had like something to work with. rather than just kind of guessing and gambling. So yeah, the ledge in the corner are really specific because of how, like, you know, they're two sides of the same coin, essentially. They're really important to... it's not like there's a right or wrong option, but if you can figure out the opponent behind the controller, that's where you can consistently, like, you know, survive for as long as possible.
So trying to play on the ledge is actually pretty good. You don't want to just try to get out. Especially like on characters that are good at edge guarding too, right? It's not always bad to be at the ledge.
Yeah, exactly, because, you know, the scariest part about it, and the reason why these habits happen in the first place, is because disadvantage is disadvantage, right? And you're just objectively closer to the blast zone, but there's just so much data to gain because, you know, it's not like, you know, the opponent's going to be doing something in a specific way, right? Like, if I'm fighting a wolf player, and they're, like, throwing out back airs or neutral airs trying to cover options, like, if I'm really preemptive with my decision-making, like, I'm basically just going right into the trap, right? And I really have nothing to say about it other than just, like, oh, I hope this works. And it's more so about, like I said, like, there's no right or wrong, but there is the philosophy of, like, what can I do to make my opponent really work for it? And those, like, micro decisions, right? Like I said, like, crouching, shielding, like, walking. Like, that isn't just, like, am I going to roll or not? You know what I mean? For your opponent. That opens up the entire game of Smash Bros. For your opponent to work on. And for you, that gives you a lot more to observe. And, like, you know, what is my opponent comfortable with? What are they not? And... you know, for Sephiroth, like, if I start out with, like, that grounded, like, foundation, now I can start to weave in, like, character-specific stuff, right? Like, the wall stabs, or, like, bursting out of the corner with, like, that. And, just because of the patience I had in those situations, maybe my opponent might start being more preemptive with their pressure, right? They might get a little nervous or antsy, and the more preemptive they are, now it's giving me the privilege of just countering their options, right? Like, oh, they're a bit too close to the ledge when I'm in the corner. Like, I'm just going to go through them with this, right? Now I'm skipping disadvantage entirely just because of all that data I gained. So that's why it's kind of like you're starting out slow and you're kind of respecting the fact that you're in disadvantage. And then you might get something to work on where you can, like, start skipping phases entirely. And it all starts with, like, what can I do to make my opponent work hard as possible for this? And especially as DK, right? Because... you basically only have traditional options, and it's a situation that's really tough for you. So if you can, like, exploit the human behind the controller, it's your biggest hope for, like, you know, finding consistency. Sorry if I rambled a bit.
No, you're fine. It's very interesting to hear your thought process behind everything because it makes it easier to put it together for myself. Yeah, especially on DK, I want to look for, like, tech chases and stuff, so it's good to, like, sit there and get that early information to look for any, like, chance to get my punish game going because of how strong it is.
Yeah, I like to call it, like, if we go back to the roll and the spot dodge versus the other option, I kind of like to call it, like, you know, the macro defense versus the micro defense. And a lot of, like, and a lot of things with players in Smash Ultimate, a lot of the time it's like 100% macro, and that's why it's so inconsistent, right?
Yeah, it's good to mix up all
It's so hard to be in control of your character if all of your decisions are really, like, macro. Like jumping or rolling or spot dodging rather than, like, the small movements.
Sephiroth wins! Ready? Three, two, one, go!
Really hard to break some of these habits. I notice myself doing it all the time. I'll get up from ledge and I'll do a second defensive option. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, I've done that.
Yeah, it's. I think something that was interesting about it that game was both the times you did the double decisions. It was, to be fair, in a situation where I was committed to like a two frame or like a preemptive option, right? So it did give you
Yeah.
more stage control. But for example, like that very last decision there,
Yeah, the spot dodge. I had no reason to throw out that spot dodge.
Exactly. Like in terms of frames, you whiffed something and you weren't like in super danger, right? But it was like vaguely punishable because you didn't land it. So you covered yourself with something that I would consider macro, right? And that's like the big
Yeah.
I guess topic at the moment is like not only acknowledging that it's there, but like what can we do to like minimize like how committal that second decision is, or maybe not even do it at all, right? And the hardest thing about it is sometimes it just requires like situational awareness and just like knowing the numbers or the matchup, right? So like
Yeah.
a lot of the time it's not like I can tell someone they're doing something wrong, but it is important to notice that like, you know, especially if you're fighting a character like Sephiroth, if he's getting a super big hit, it is probably due to something like that, right? Like he's repositioning and pre-positioning, and not only is he like trying to position himself for the first option, but if he wants to hit you hard, he's probably going to have to cover the second option. And if you don't give him that at all, he has to take a lot of the smaller hits. You know, and this philosophy could obviously apply to every character, but
Yeah, no, it's matchup dependent. So if I do, especially since I'm a heavy, I can usually live pretty long as I'm not getting hit by the slower, stronger moves.
yeah.
3, 2, 1, go!
Do you think that the most things people struggle with this game is like disadvantage state and then like matchups? Or is there
Um,
like another thing that a lot of people struggle with too?
I think matchups is the big one. I don't necessarily. I actually think it's because of the frame of thought of what they think that means. A big thing I talk about in these Metafy lessons is, I guess, my priority list of and where matchups lay in that isn't number one for a lot of people. It
Mhm.
is like you always hear the saying like, oh, like, you know, how am I supposed to like win consistently? There's all these matchups, and there's a lot of truth to that, of course. But I personally have faith that if you have a very flexible flowchart for your character, not only do I think you can learn a matchup fast, I think you can, like, you know, win in a matchup that you don't really know. If you can really on the fly adjust what's going on, even if you do get caught off once or twice, I think you can play well enough to like win regardless. Like that's like my philosophy. So basically, it's like, you know, character flowchart first, matchup experience second. Obviously, I'm not going to tell someone not to learn a matchup. Like knowing the specifics is great, but
Yeah.
I personally think having a really adjustable, in-depth flowchart for your character is more important. Just because there are things that are going to be universal in every matchup, and I think it just allows for you to categorize certain characters' play styles, like, you know, character archetypes, and it starts to get easier rather than everything is just like 100 different individual situations and matchups. You know what I mean? It becomes more so like a bit more blended. Like for example, if I use, you know, my main Diddy as an example,
Mhm.
you know, let's say I'm throwing banana a lot and they're shielding it a lot. It's like, okay, maybe that means I should throw the banana from different angles. Maybe that means I should use more Z-drop aerials. Maybe that means I should use more monkey flip. So it's just constant adjustments, right? Or, you know, that's just a super easy example because banana is so important.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really mean anything matchup specific, but that already helps with so many different matchups just because, you know, there's so many adjustments just with one option.
Yeah, it's important to look at your tools and then see how you can use them differently.
And I think a lot of players think there's a right or wrong answer to a lot of things. Like when their opponent's in disadvantage, like on the ledge, they think, I have to get this ledge trap or something is wrong, right? Like if I don't get more damage here, then I'm doing something wrong. And sure, that makes sense. But let's say you're playing against an unfamiliar matchup, and they might have character-specific reversals that you're not aware of, right? So maybe you take a character length or two back than your usual ledge trapping method when you are comfortable. And you still threaten with hitboxes, right? You're still ledge trapping, but you're prioritizing the corner pressure phase afterwards, right? So it's like you're learning about how they get off the ledge, and you're going to learn how they get out of the corner, rather than like, all right, I'm going in. Hopefully I get the ledge trap or I get hit, right? So you're only learning potentially one thing, and you might even be taking damage for it, rather than like, you know, taking it slower, right? Go from the ledge trap phase, learn some things, go to the corner pressure phase, learn some things. Now we're back to neutral, right? You probably didn't even get hit because you're playing it so safe. You're still putting out hitboxes and putting out pressure, but it's more so for collecting data. So it's like you're kind of learning a matchup, and you're sacrificing some things while taking some small victories, right? And this doesn't even have to apply to matchups. This could apply to just playing the game, right? Maybe you're playing someone that you're not sure what they're going to do, or you're trying to prioritize your own stock, or, you know, you could just be playing it safe. Like, that's a philosophy that you could just apply, but it's basically me just trying to propose that maybe people could have a different frame of thought for what a matchup really means in this game, right? Because a lot of people think, well, I lost my local, I don't know how to fight this character. You know, I think there's a different philosophy rather than thinking, I have to learn this specific matchup in this best of 3. When in reality, it's like, I wouldn't trust anyone with that. but I would trust them like having an in-depth adjustable flowchart to, you know, have a good defense, you know what I mean? Like, to be able to be prepared even for the unknown, I guess.
Yeah.
Sorry if I rambled a bit once again.
Oh, you're fine. Makes sense.
Three, two, one, go!
I think one thing I personally wanted to mention is actually like something I look for when I'm fighting someone, and also just an interesting topic in general, is what makes someone likely to burst, like use a burst option. And in this case, like a big thing I'm looking for when I'm playing you is like what makes you want to dash attack, right?
Yeah.
And something that I or at least I like to think, you know, like my mindset when I'm processing all the information is whenever there was a potential opportunity for a hit, you're more likely, when neutral resets, to burst back in. So it's kind of like that opportunity you saw, you haven't let go of, right? Like you haven't like been like, oh, the opportunity came and went. And that's a big thing I talk about in Metafy lessons with players a lot, is like let's say you get like a string and you're looking for like the finishing blow and it doesn't work out, but you're pacing like that fast, like advantage state pacing, it bleeds into your neutral, it bleeds into disadvantage, you know what I mean? It's kind of like you're not refreshing the fact that you had this opportunity, you got this damage or whatever the case may be, and now it's gone. That happens a lot, and it's something I really look for to take advantage of when I'm playing against someone, or even baiting them into thinking that I'm falling into that habit, right? Like like I even try to play like mind games with that. And I feel like something I notice with like your dash attacks or your commitments in general is like if we scrap and it gets like a little dicey or weird, maybe you got it like a stray hit, and it didn't work out like you exactly planned, you're more likely to like go back in there even if it's risky, you know what I mean? Because a lot of the time your gameplay is very precise, you use a lot of walking. So I think even from the things we talked about earlier on in the lesson about like the double decisions and whatnot, I feel like you could, you know, the more conscious you are of it, you could really comfortably change this in your gameplay because you already are really proficient with the micro movements, right? Like using DK's tilts and walking and, you know, knowing when to kind of explode and when to like just play like you're like a spacing character. And I think though, like those being the two main things we talked about, like when you're likely to burst and the double decisions, I think are really important to mention because I feel like you could easily, you know, add to that and like in like a, you know, whether we want to call it a habit or not, it's not even really about removing it, but like understanding it and like you know, meshing it with something you're already really good at.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think we have time for like another game or two.
All right. Oh, I'm down to try to get a couple more in at least.
Okay, yeah.
Choose your fighter, Diddy Kong. Ready? Three, two, one, go!
Well, GG's.
GG's. I hope today helped in some way. And once again, if you ever have any other questions, feel free to send me a message on Discord, and I'll try my best to get back to you. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good one.
You too.
Bye. All right, Chad. How did I do? I think it's great you point out strengths as well. Most coaches focus on weaknesses. I guess another thing to consider is like, I feel like it's only natural I start to talk about someone's strengths because of how many aspects of Smash bleed into each other. So I think that's why it's just natural. Stream over, are you gonna practice now? I'm probably gonna take a break and stream my own practice like tonight. think I'm gonna take a break now. I hope I did a good job on the lessons. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I do want to stream more today. Hopefully it's practice. If I don't stream, I'm sure I'll practice off stream, but yep. Have a good one, y'all.